I mean, I didn't go to law school. I wasn't smart enough to go to law school. I couldn't pass the LSAT.
There is a problem with California's recall. It's unconstitutional. Wow. And look at the date, August 11th, 2021. Yes, suddenly after all these many years of the recall being on the in the California Constitution, all of a sudden, now that Gavin Newsom is flopping big time in the polls, now a couple of legal scholars, quote unquote, from Berkeley, suddenly discovered that, oh my gosh, it's unconstitutional. How convenient. And by the way, as a reminder, it was my video last week on August, I believe it was August 10th. Oh, just the day before this op-ed in the New York Times was published, that my video showing Gavin Newsom completely cracking up during a editorial board meeting at the Sacramento Bee went viral. That's when the dam broke. So just and by the way, does anybody remember what was it, about 15, 16 years, or more than that actually, years ago when Gray Davis was removed by a recall election and replaced by Arnold Schwarzenegger? Does anybody remember any talk about it being declared unconstitutional? And no, just when Newsom looks like he's about to lose. Let's take a look at a couple of videos on this subject, and just kind of funny. Oh, it's especially funny since, guess what? Many of these recall ballots have already been sent out. A little late in the game to all of a sudden want it declared unconstitutional, don't you think?
The most basic principles of democracy are that the candidate who gets the most votes is elected and that every voter gets an equal say in an election's outcome, they wrote. The California system for voting in a recall election violates these principles and should be declared unconstitutional. The two described how the recall election would be split into two questions, the first being whether or not Newsom should remain governor, and the second being who should replace him if not. They noted that the first question would be decided by a majority vote, while the second would be decided by a plurality, the person with the most votes wins. By conducting the recall election in this way, Mr. Newsom can receive far more votes than any other candidate but still be removed from office, they wrote. Many focus on how unfair this structure is to the governor, but consider instead how unfair it is to the voters who support him. They described a scenario in which a candidate winning the plurality of votes on the second question, considering Newsom was recalled, received fewer votes than a minority of people voting not to support the recall in the first question. That scenario is not a wild hypothetical. Based on virtually every opinion poll, Mr. Newsom seems likely to have more votes to keep him in office than any other candidate will receive to replace him. But he may well lose the first question on the recall, effectively disenfranchising his supporters on the second question, they wrote. This is not just nonsensical and undemocratic. It is unconstitutional.
A separate issue the two could face, questions about the constitutionality of California's recall process overall. This comes as some legal scholars note voters might not have an equal say in the outcome of the election because the law allows Newsom to be replaced by a candidate who gets fewer votes on question 2 than he does on question 1. Bonta would not say if he's ready to defend the state's recall election laws should their constitutionality be challenged in court.
We're aware of that, and we'll be coordinating with the Secretary of State's office to determine next steps. That's where we are in that process.
State leaders say for now, the way the process is set up is legally compliant.
I mean, I didn't go to law school. I wasn't smart enough to go to law school. I couldn't pass the LSAT.